Good evening, all. I'm Devora Krasnianski of Adai Ad, and Adai Ad's mission is to provide awareness, education, and guidance for all aspects related to enriching and empowering the couple relationship. And we offer tools and mindsets through talks like this, and also our daily Just One Thing WhatsApp tip. You can reach us to subscribe for that at 475-212-2049. That's our WhatsApp. You can send any WhatsApp communication through that. And that's also the way to subscribe for our Just One Thing WhatsApp, daily WhatsApp. Tonight's talk is from the Shidduch University series about preparing for your successful marriage. And you can check out our previous episodes also on our website at adaiad.org. That's ADAIAD.org. Tonight's talk is presented by Adai Ad and the Crown Heights Jewish Community Council in conjunction with MASC. And once again, thank you, Ruchama Klapman, for all the work that you do for all of the Jewish community in the areas of mental health and everything else that you do. And could you tell us a little bit about your confidential helpline, Ruchama?
So I want to thank you. How are you, Eliezer Schwadron and Devora Krasnianski for MASC, being part of collaborating with you. MASC is in our 25th year. We have over 119,000 families that have reached out to MASC. And I want to just let everyone know, Eliezer Schwadron was one of the first therapists facilitating groups back then, a quarter of a century ago.
Yes, I remember, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Great.
So MASC's helpline offers referrals for all mental health, including addiction and rehabs. We give you referrals, therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists. Our helpline number is 718-758-0400. Call us, confidential. All calls, very, very strict. You can call anonymously and we'll be happy to get you to the right referral. We also have a radio show Thursday night at 9 p.m. and it's on the 620 a.m. dial. It's called Family Matters. MASC's located in Brooklyn, but our referrals are around the world. I am a Nefesh executive board member. Nefesh has over 1,000 therapists from therapists around the world. So we're there ready to help anyone that calls that needs a referral. Thank you again, Adai Ad. Thank you, Eliezer Schwadron.
Thank you,
Have a
Ruchama.
good evening.
Great. I just want to point out to Ruchama that I was working as a therapist, but me and my wife were also joining the parent groups for support for ourselves. So it was a double relationship there. Thank you. It's great.
And for tonight's topic, we're talking about getting ready for your successful marriage. We're talking more particularly to young men. And anyone listening, this is really being addressed to men, but we can't kick you off because we don't do that. So, Eliezer, let's get talking. As we get talking, first let's talk a little bit to the work that you do in the area of marriage and in the work that you do in general.
Okay, so for the last 36 years, actually, I've been working to have various Jewish mental health agencies, and mainly with people with developmental disabilities. Right now, the last 20 years, I've been working for an organization called Adai Ad in Muncie. In the past, I worked for Beis Ezra and Jumpstart and Women's League and let's see, where else have we worked? All different agencies, and I have a private practice right now up in Chestnut Ridge in the Muncie area. And what I'm doing is I'm working with really a lot of different things. I have a program trying to connect fathers and sons together. I'm working with individual young men and couples, some children periodically, all different things.
So I'm really excited about tonight's topic about getting ready for marriage. When we talk about getting ready for marriage, there's a lot that comes into to Adai Ad, and I'm sure things come into you. What are you seeing that people wish they knew before they got married? Things that they could have worked on, could have known before.
Oh, they could have, what could have, would have, should have. Exactly. Well, I think one thing that that I'm seeing and that I'm hearing a lot of is that people weren't prepared for marriage. They didn't realize marriage was going to be so complicated. Might have thought, many people thought this was going to be the answer that's going to help me.
Right.
I mean, this is going to be this is going to save me from my problems. And in reality, it's, marriage is an incredible institution that is there to make us great, in essence. It's really there to make us great. But in any institution that tries to make people great, it's not going to be an easy sell, and it's going to be difficult. So I think people wish they would have worked harder on their marriage. Ben Schaefer, in his, I love that book of his, 10 dumb mistakes that very smart people make about marriage. And one of his dumb mistakes is that people think they don't need to work on their marriage. It's just going to be, it's going to be glot. It's just going to be no problem. Everything's going to be great, and that's not necessarily the function of it, can be marriage, because it's there as a little bit of a laboratory to help you become the best person you can be. So that's going to take work, and it takes a little pain, sometimes a lot. And the pain is the growth, actually. And the pain is the growth. So I think people wish they would have worked on themselves more. And I think that's kind of what you kind of framed this out to be tonight, which is what, how could we help people to identify what they could focus on now before they get married? That's going to make the marriage, better and more of a real connection between the two of them.
Right.
I think that's another thing. People, I remember my father used to say, he read an article. It said, someone said, I wish I would have eaten more ice cream in life and less beans. Meaning, like, I wish I would have enjoyed life a little more. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I think we want to enjoy a marriage. Marriage is not the punishment. Marriage is not like, oh my God. People feel like you hear in the outside world, oh, you're getting married, so that's, I guess, the end of the fun. It's the opposite. It's the opposite. Marriage keeps getting better.
But I'm also finding some people say that if it shouldn't be so hard if I married the right person, or then it wouldn't be so hard. So I must have not married the right person.
Right. Excellent. So many people, I shouldn't say so many people, but many times I've heard people say, I married the wrong girl. No, I married the wrong girl. And as my son-in-law said recently, like, well, maybe it means that you think marriage was going to be different. It was supposed to be easier. It was supposed to be like, no problem. And I see I'm having problems. So it's like, it's not really the wrong girl. It's maybe I might have to reinvent my own understanding of what marriage is. And the beautiful thing is that happens all the time at any time. And it's never too little and it's never too late to start applying to a marriage,
It's definitely a little bit harder when you're in the marriage and you've made those mistakes. So we're talking to before we get married, what are the right mindsets or better mindsets to come in with, or to come into the dating even?
Yeah. So, Pesach Krohn had a wonderful shir I listened to many years ago, where there was a Hasidic couple, and he came home Friday night right after daven, and he walks in, and the table's not set, and he's wondering, like, what kind of shidduch is this? Like, we only met a few times, but still, now why? Because in his family, he grew up, the table is set. As soon as the tata comes in, we make kiddush. In her family, the father had a very tough work week. Whenever he came in, that was a siman. Slowly start getting the table ready. We're going to eat in about 45 minutes because I need to relax right now. And that's how she grew up, and that's how he grew up. So the first Shabbos was a shocker for both of them because, he really just felt like. So this couple discussed it. They discussed it. Not only did they discuss it, they decided to make a list from 0 to 100, what they think about all different things. When do you like to come to a chasana? Beginning, middle, or end? 80%. I have an 80 for getting there on time for the chuppah. She has a 40 for getting there on time for the chuppah. Okay, right now we have an issue. So they went through all different events, all different events in their life and worked hard. And it was actually an exciting labor of love between the two of them to try to figure this out. You know, I mean, and he was saying all couples should do it. And I think it's a great idea, actually. You know, like when you, to really uncover the dynamics that sometimes are there that can actually be a stumbling block for people. You know, that's a real issue.
Not to say they should do it when they're dating, because when
I
you can
think yes,
totally
I
get
think there's
married.
yeah, you know, listen, you know, you know how life marriage is. Like you get married, and you're wondering, did I marry the right person? Did I marry the wrong person? Right? The right person. I'm nervous. Finally, you get married. You realize you married the right person, and 2 days later, you realize you married the wrong person, and then it goes back and forth until you finally understand. Yes, I really married the right person. And so I think that's a normal that you know, we have two people here who are very different, who really don't know each other too well usually, and now they're also all of a sudden living together. I mean, so I think that we need to give people some tools and also cut a little slack for people to realize that, okay, this is a work in progress. I think that's the main thing. This is a work in progress.
But just to reiterate, you don't have to work through what time of the wedding do you want to come to when you're dating, because you're always there's going to be differences. So it's just a matter of working it through, not saying, okay, we're not compatible because we don't want to go to the same part of the wedding.
Exactly. Right. Excellent. Exactly. Done.
And the other thing is that what I always find interesting is having these conversations. It's not just really about what time do you want to come to the wedding. There's always a little bit of a backstory of why you like to come to that part of the wedding. And through these conversations, you get to know each other better. Yes,
exactly. I think that's the goal, right? The goal is we're getting to know each other better. And I think the big marriage issue for men, in particular, I imagine for women as well, is we get to know ourselves better. Because we don't really know ourselves, you know, because there's no pushback. This is, you know, this is the old story of the elastic wall. When you start pushing against the wall, if you have a hard wall to push against, so you know where you are. But if it's an elastic wall, if it just keeps pushing in, then you don't really know where you are in space. And I think that marriage helps a man to really identify, you know, we got a lot of issues here now. Like, of course you have issues. You're supposed to have issues. There's nothing wrong with having issues. Healthy to have issues. That's the reality. That's how we begin to identify what we need to work on. You know, here's an idea for if I could just jump in, for like if people want to work on something. So take a look. Here's an idea. What are your judgments about other people? What are your judgments about other people? And if you're in yeshiva, if you're working, no matter where you are, you got tons of people around you. What are your judgments about these people? You know, they say that a person makes an assessment on a website within the first 1/20th of a second. 1/20th of a second, the website developers have to have your attention. Otherwise, you're moving on to something else. With a person, within the 1/10th of a second, people make a judgment about that person. So when you make your judgments and about everyone and anyone that you're meeting in yeshiva, on the road, the guy next to you in the car, whatever it is, what's your judgment about that person? What's your judgment? And look at your judgment. Look at a positive judgment about them. Look at a negative judgment about them. Now we have an interesting idea. It's called, if you spot it, you got it. So this is an opportunity for people to begin to understand their own baggage in life. We all grow up with tons of suitcases of baggage, right? That's our job. That's our job as we go through life. If you look at a little 4-year-old having a tantrum, and he is lying on the floor screaming and crying and yelling no. When I see that, can I know how to, whether my own grandchildren or other people's, I say, you're going to be working on that your whole life. Yes, that is our job. That's our job. I am number one. No, you're not, believe it or not. Yipes, that's a hard, bitter pill to swallow. You know that? And so as you have all these judgments about other people, just sort of look at them without judgment, without any negative judgment on yourself. Just say, I'm investigating. I'm a policeman doing an investigation right here. Let's hear what my judgments are. And as you begin to see similar judgments with all different people, you begin to identify, what do I need to work on? Because when I come into this marriage, I'm gonna have plenty of judgments about my wife. I'm gonna have plenty of judgments about her family. I'm gonna have plenty of judgments about about different things. So our goal is to keep working on judgments and to keep trying to work on positive judgments. Don the kapschus. I'll give you a good example. For example, if I could, excuse me 1 second. I was with my wife in the car the other day, and she's driving. My wife has to be a very good driver. And like every time she tries to put the car in gear, this beeping goes off. And we couldn't figure out what it was. And then it turns out her door is open. Okay. So I had a judgment, like, who leaves the door open, right? We didn't know the door was open. Yesterday, when numero uno right here was getting in the car, we had a similar problem, and I couldn't figure out what would be the problem until I figured out my door was open. I had left the driver's door open, just like she did the day beforehand. When she did it, there was a judgment on my part. Like when I did it, it was Hashem saying, "Hey, wake up, buddy! You have a lot of your judgments. That was just an opportunity for me to like recognize, like, hey, where are you getting into judgment? People make mistakes. People make mistakes all day long. You know, just that was just sort of an opportunity, and Hashem is giving us opportunities 24/7. I want people to know that. That's how the Bnei Hashem works. He's giving us opportunities 24/7 to identify all these issues in ourselves. He's on our team. He wants us to be better people. So he's giving us opportunities. We need to just look at them and accept them lovingly without personal judgment. When people start judging themselves, I'm a loser, this is horrible, I can't believe what a bad person I am, I'm never going to get to. That type of judgments do not help. Those are punishing judgments, which then just gets us in this like little shame punishment loop. We just go round and round and round, nothing changes. We have to lovingly accept Hashem's direction and say, okay, you need to work on this, Laser. This is something you need some help with. So if I could do that in a loving way, then I have a chance to change. Then I have a chance to change. And I'll just throw one other idea out. There is an idea that sometimes there's going to be pain of identifying where I'm at. Pain is much better than shame. Feel the pain, not the shame. Rabbi Twersky says, guilt is I made a mistake. Shame is I am a mistake. We don't want to go into shame. We want to go into guilt. We want to go into even grief, actually. Joe Nicolosi talks about going into grief. When you feel, when you see where you're at, when you see the depths of where you are, go into grief, because that's the way to change it. Shame is not the way to change it.
And shaming ourselves, or shaming, even shaming somebody else, or
for sure not
shaming
somebody else. But we're talking about, when ourselves, when we sort of look at ourselves and we sort of like, become, we never want to use the P word, pathetic. We never want to use that word. You know what I mean?
Right. So then there's also that aspect of when you see what you know, like you said, if you spot it, you got it. So sometimes that can really tell us like what are things that we can work on, like, or like, I also like when you said that the positive, like if something you admire in somebody, then it's probably because you have it in some level, or you want to work toward that. Nice
idea. Yeah, I think so. When there's nothing better than, let's say we want to start a new, I don't know, you want to start a new business, so you go into a similar business. How are they doing it here? Let's see what they're doing. Let's see some ideas. Let's see. We don't have to reinvent the wheel every second. So I agree with you. Like when we see positives in other people and we want to learn from them, we want to be connected and we want to be close to them, then that's an opportunity. As Hashem's sort of saying, great, take that opportunity. Our whole religion is based on change. It's all about change. It's all about, the ideas of coming out with now with neuroplasticity. The idea of how the brain is so like it's not rigid, it's plastic. It bends, it moves, it comes. You change your thinking. I'll give you a little idea. We just had this. There's a thing called a neural pathway. If you think about water, you think about water coming down a mountain, and the first time it rains, so it makes a small little indentation in the dirt. And the next time the rain follows that automatically, and then again and again until you have a deep ridge, a deep gully there that the water sort of cascades down the mountain. And that's what kind of what happens in our brain. Every time we have a similar thought over and over and over again, it creates a deeper and deeper neural pathway. But the good news is we create new neural pathways to replace negative neural pathways. So that's why the importance of think good and it will be good, right? The Rebbe used to say, think good and it will be good. That is so true, scientifically, because the more you think good, the more we create these neural pathways where automatically the thought becomes going down the positive neural pathway. And that's why it's important to keep negative thoughts out. Don't ruminate about negative things that happen to us. No, just the opposite. Create new positive neural pathways.
And I love how you said about change, because I think that a big part of marriage is that you give each other feedback, and so that you can change. It's a feedback from a loving person who cares about your growth and your success. Of course, that means that you have to know how to receive feedback. Sometimes the feedback can be perceived as negative rather than seeing it as an opportunity for growth, or someone else's observations that you may not see. So firstly, something to work on now is being able to receive negative feedback.
Yes. Well, and get ready to put your seatbelt on, buddy, because there might be some negative feedback. Okay.
Oh, there will be. And to women too, just to say.
Yeah. It's not, listen, the men actually, I spoke to my nephew today, my cousin, Nasser Svi, and he was saying, 1 + 1 is equal to 1+. 1 + 1 is not equal to 2. This is not a partnership where we're getting together and we're going to, dilly things up between us, and you're going to do some of the stuff and I'm going to do stuff and we're going to work together. This is not a partnership. This is a new entity. Marriage is a new entity. It's not like we're going to we're both partners in this new business, as it were. So I'm only talking now from the man point of view, and I think this is important because we're not asking the women to do this, but we're asking the men to do this. I believe is that we're taking 100% responsibility for the relationship. We men are taking 100% responsibility for the relationship, and it might be the women are doing that too. But we're only worried right now about our side of the street. We're thinking about that. So that involves how we give feedback to a woman, and even on a date, I mean, he talks about this, Ben Schaefer also, Rabbi Schaefer, he says, you never criticize your spouse. You never criticize your spouse. I mean, just think about that for a second. First of all, your wife is not your mother. She's not your mother. She's not your sister. As my wife actually mentioned to me, she says, the marriage relationship is the only relationship where you are constantly getting closer to the person. A parent-child, you're not trying to spend your whole life getting closer to your child. You want them to grow up and move out and start their own life and create another generation. You're not there trying to hold on to them. Siblings are not doing that. The marriage, the husband-wife relationship is the relationship that keeps getting closer and closer and closer. And that's the goal of the relationship. And so I think you're right. There has to be feedback. We could talk about feedback, but I think there has to be you're be in a relationship with someone. There has to be trust. There's connecting. Trust is really built by support. I trust you. I keep making it as Stephen Covey says, like emotional deposits into the emotional bank account. You never want to rob the bank. Periodically, we do things mistakenly that might create a withdrawal, but you never want to rob the bank. You never want to legally take something out, and that means us working on ourselves. Very good thing for a very important skill for a husband is to have a very short memory. Start developing a short memory now. Because because that creates a happier life, actually.
I love how you said no criticism. And if people use the phrase constructive criticism, but nonetheless, constructive criticism still has that criticism tone to it.
Yes, because constructive criticism usually means, this is how I would prefer you do it this way. Okay, but I'm going to say it nicely because this is the right way. Well, that's the whole point. There is no right and wrong way, usually. You know, there's our way. Where the couple is creating a new dynamic where we're working things out. You know, sometimes, you know, it's interesting patience is very important. Patience is very important in every relationship. But, you know, you never want to say things too fast. Sometimes people may self-correct. Actually, it's interesting. I'm telling you, I work with people with developmental disabilities. One of the biggest problems with people learning is the way everybody learns is by self-correcting. You make a mistake, you self-correct, and you get the right answer. People with developmental disabilities frequently do not get the opportunity to self-correct because frequently caregivers are there who want to help them, or because it takes too long for someone to self-correct. They just want to do it for them. You know, we get into this whole idea of learned helplessness. But you want to let people self-correct sometimes. And patience is an important dynamic, and it sort of lets people have some space to figure out things on their own frequently. But I agree with you. There's a very, hold it. How do you get someone to change? Well, you discuss things. That's part of the thing we're talking about, I think, is like communication. Communication with your wife. How do we communicate with each other? How do we know each other? I don't want to say the wrong thing. You don't want to say the wrong thing. So like, how are we communicating, you know? And frequently at the beginning, very gingerly. That was delicious. Thank you. You know, like, you know, even expectations. Let's talk about expectations for a minute. Another definition of an expectation is a planned disappointment. You know, what's your expectation here? What's your expectation? Some of these guys, I think, well, I don't know. I'll get home. Dinner will be all ready. I'll walk in. Everything will be there for me. I'll have, you know, I'll be taken care of. Well, I know this. I'm not that the guys are there very frequently are looking to take care of as well. But I think it's important because expectations are very tricky, and they trick us into thinking something is going to happen, and it frequently doesn't. And then we're disappointed. And then we had an expectation. We thought this was going to happen, and now, well, maybe there's a problem, or maybe this is a problem, or maybe she has a problem, or maybe her mother has a problem. Like, you know, it's very important to really reduce the expectations as much as possible, and not just be, as we say, be curious. Be curious what's going to happen. Let's be curious. What's going to happen next? Let's see.
So curiosity, I think, is one of the most important C's of a marriage, together with commitment and communication. So can you talk a little bit what curiosity looks like?
Well, I guess first of all, we'll go back to not being judgmental, you know, not being critical. There's a great story in the book, The Other Side of the Story, where this woman calls her friend, and her friend puts her on hold for a second, and she hears this baby like babbling and picking up the phone, and she feels like what's going on? Like this woman, she hears her talking in the background, but her baby has the phone, and she's like babbling. She feels like so irresponsible, like she's not watching her kid, and she's talking on the phone. Then she begins to identify the voice of that baby as actually her own child in the basement on the other extension.
This is an old example because nobody has this anymore.
Good point. Good point.
It's about landlines.
At least it was a portable phone.
Okay.
But anyway, good point. But I just came across that book recently, and that was one of my favorite stories. So the idea that we have, you know, we make expectations. We think things are happening. I forgot the question actually you asked.
We're talking about what does curiosity look like?
Oh, curiosity. What does a curiosity look like? I don't know. Let's see, what would curiosity look like? In order to be curious, we have to be emotionally stable. By that I mean, if we're making judgments, then it's going to be very hard to be curious because we know the answer already. We know why she's doing it because she has this issue or this issue or this or this issue. So we have to be emotionally in a place where we're open to listen. And it's interesting. It's almost like involves being connected to yourself. We're such a fast-paced people with so much action in the world that just quiet connection with self. And I'm not even going to use mindfulness, but we could say that even. We miss ourselves. We sort of get connected to yourself. If you're ever really lonely sometimes, because part of it is that we're not really connected to even who we are ourselves. So I think part of curiosity has to be I'm stable enough to not jump into a judgment, not to plan that, not think that I know the answer already. That's a big male problem that we run into, that I run into frequently about myself. That I think I know the answer. I got this down. I figured the whole thing out in 1 second. And it's always fun when we get a real reality check about how way far off we were. So that's always helpful to help us. It's Hashem's way of saying, okay, back, let's go. Come on, guys, back into reality. Let's go, this is life, just get, you're a normal person. And now let's get back into listening, being open, judging the kapschus, figuring out things, how this could be possible. Okay, let's all, whoever's in the audience, let's try this out. Read the sentence below and then follow the directions underneath.
I'll read it out loud. Finished files are the results of years of scientific study combined with the experience of years.
Right.
Now go back and slowly count the number of F's in the sentence. Count them only once.
So let the people could see it. Okay, now, even though we can't see you out there in Radio Land, so how many people counted 3 F's?
I can say
How many people counted 4 F's? How about 5 F's? How about 6 F's? So most people count 3 F's.
Right.
Finished files and scientific. Now, in reality, there are 6 F's there. Why are there 6 F's? And even if you go back and read it again, sometimes you don't see it. And the reason is because the word of, there are 3 words of there. OF.
Right.
So finished files are the result of scientific study combined with the experience of years. Right off the bat, they're telling you finished files. They're asking you subconsciously to look for a very hard F sound. Finished files. And you see scientific. But the word of, so your eye sees it, your brain is seeing it, but you don't identify it as an F because you are looking for something else. So this is a good example of sometimes in marriage where we begin to look for things. We see a pattern. We see my wife starts acting this way and she's acting that way, and now I'm beginning to understand who she is. She always does this, and this is exactly an example of thinking, of looking, of finding what you're looking for. Finding what you're looking for. And in life, we don't want to do the scientific files. We don't want to find the 3 F's and feel like we don't see the rest of the picture. So we want to see a full spectrum. I think that's the trick here. Full spectrum, like the sun is full spectrum light. Well, maybe it's not, but there's we want to see the full spectrum of the person. And the way we can do that is by being curious and by sort of being non-judgmental. So the more non-judgmental, the more open we are to just experience who this person is. And this is a lifelong experience. I heard a great story recently. Rabbi Fine from up in Scranton, Rebbetzin Fine, someone had asked Rebbetzin Fine, and maybe they had been married 40, 50 years together. And they said to Rebbetzin Fine, what's it like being married to the same man for so long? And she answered beautifully, he's not the same man. He's not the same person I married. And I'm not the same person. We're people, we keep changing, and I think that's
It's profound.
yes, a very, very important thing in terms, okay, how do we, I will stop us from sharing.
Right.
Okay.
The other thing I do about curiosity is just as an exercise, what else could be happening here? And sometimes just the idea of when you come up even with 2 or 3 different what else could be happening here, you see already that I don't know. It doesn't, even if one of the 2 or 3 things are not really what's happened, just the idea that you could come up with 2 or 3 other things that are happening here.
Love it. Yes, 100%. I think that's great.
And we can
Yes,
do
we
that
are so
exercise
sure.
always.
That's great. Let's do that. Because what else could be happening here? Right.
Right. And I also
Right.
try to bring it down to without judgment, like to say that someone is late is already is judgment. Say that they said that the home was 6:30 and now it's 7:30. That's more factual rather than they're late. That word late has a judgment in it.
Got
And
it.
if we see it all the way down to that kind of level of how much judgment we have in our words, when just that awareness, I mean, to me, that was mind blowing just to see how many of our common lexicon is judging already.
Cool. Cool. Yeah, I think, let's say someone was late all the time. Let's say you happen to marry a person who's late, or let's say you're the person who's late all the time.
Right.
Let's say the guy's the person who's late all the time. It's hard. It's hard being with someone who's late all the time.
Right.
You always do a lot of waiting. Now, it could be you decide you're going to do something with all the time. That you're waiting around all the time. And it's very hard to change people sometimes, we're going to change this person, they're going to start coming earlier. Probably not. But now comes the opportunity, and I think this is the reality of life, because there are many people who are late all the time and for everything. And they're not bad people. They're just late people. They're just people who are late. So, but they could be fantastic accountants. They could be great lawyers. They could be amazing doctors and surgeons. But they have different, whatever their style is. You know what I mean? It's like, and I think it's important to see the whole person, not just a little sliver. That's what Pesach's about. Mitzrayim, right? Tsar, like very narrow. We don't want a narrow view. We want an expansive view. That's where the freedom comes in the relationship. That's freedom, is having an expansive view. If you're stuck in a narrow view with a narrow person who's like always late, you feel like a victim. That's another important thing I just want to speak about for a second. What's the pasuk? I don't remember exactly, but Sheva Pamim, like the tzaddik falls 7 times. Tzaddik falls 7 times and he keeps getting up. But then the second part of the pasuk is very interesting. It says, but a Rasha, he trips on his wicked, being a wicked, his viciousness. He trips on it. What's the difference between falling and tripping? So I was reading a book, the Devora say, do you know what the difference is? You fall on your own, but you feel someone tripped you. I'm the victim here. Someone tripped me. It wasn't fair. It's not my fault. I fell, but it's someone else's fault. I think that is a very dangerous situation. I mean, tzaddik, he keeps falling. How about let's stay with the tzaddikim. You could keep falling and still be a tzaddik. He keeps falling down. He keeps getting up. But when we start blaming people, we say it's not that person. I'm the victim here. That's a problem in relationships. And men could be very victimized. They could be very victimized, and that's an important skill set. And I want to say it's a skill set. Why do I say a skill? Because you learn how to overcome that. It's not even if it's a personality trait. It's a skill that you keep working on and keep changing and growing from. And because it's hard to go through life as a victim. Very hard to go through life as a victim. You know what I mean? And most victims just all do a lot of blaming.
Right.
And you know what I mean? So we don't want to do that. We want to change. And we have the utensils to change. We have the utensils, but it's going to be hard work, as everything is in life with hard work, which is a value.
But
that itself is an idea. The guys, it's going to be hard. It's not supposed to be easy. We have to makabel that.
And if you notice yourself as a blamer, or that take responsibility for things that are possibly you had a big part in it, like most of the time we have a part in something, and if we totally put it on somebody else and are not owning up to it, if you notice that kind of pattern in yourself, that's something that's important to work on, because bringing that into a marriage is going to be blaming your wife and your kids and your boss and not taking responsibility, meaning that you're not owning up to and not making the change that needs to happen because your boss wasn't good enough, or your partner, or the client, this and never. So if you notice yourself as a blamer or doing some
Right.
blaming, something to work on.
Yes. Now, don't blame yourself either if you're a
No.
blamer. Right. Just like recognizing that we grow up in families, sometimes, that's one of the biggest issues, is what kind of families family of origin, that we came from. That's one of the biggest ways that we're going to replay that relationship we saw in our parents. Rav Noach Weinberg said, "I knew Hashem loved me because I knew my father loved me." That's the key initial relationship. The relationship with Rebbeinu Shalom is our relationship with our father. You got a very strict, tough father, you're going to feel Hashem is out to get you. Like that. Now we all work on that, and we're always working on that. But where we come from is a big part of how we're going to get along in a marriage. And many of us I came from a divorced family. My parents got divorced, and I always thought, well, I'll probably get divorced also, because I just figured I'll probably get divorced too. Parents did, so that's and almost it was like a fait accompli. Like, I don't have a choice. I have no input to this. It just probably will happen. And Baruch Hashem, thank God, married for many years. And thank God, hard, hate to get divorced. And so I would, but we all bring our baggage into marriage. We all bring our baggage into marriage. And that's part of, I think, what you wanted to do tonight was to recognize our baggage, to recognize those ideas of being a victim, to recognize judgments, to recognize when we feel like, I need, it's all about me. It's all about me. That, and we're all born that way. And that's what we're working on our whole life. We're all working on that. That's a normal thing to work on. It's normal to bring that into a marriage, and just to recognize that that's the Rebbeinu Shalom's way of helping us to really perfect ourselves. Is this relationship?
In a loving relationship, ideally.
Yeah.
And you keep it loving by being able to take that feedback and give feedback in a way that's best received. And there's different ways to give feedback, and that's what you'll kind of use your Shana Rishona to figure out what's the best ways
Shana
to
Rishona,
take.
very important. Yes. Also, they tell you about child rearing. God willing, the guys get married, then you have to, and they say, I've heard this more about child rearing, but I think it's important about marriage. You don't have to see everything as a parent. You don't have to see a kid do everything and respond to everything. Sometimes it's better just, I never saw it. And that's very good, I think, advice for a marriage as well. You don't have to respond to every little thing you see. Sometimes you just look the other way, or you just never saw it, never heard it.
Right. And some things are important to bring up, and some things are just because they are dangerous, or wasting money or wasting energy or whatever. But some things are really not worth bringing up.
Yes. Right.
On the other hand, and like the old toothpaste example, like cap on, cap off. Now they make new toothpaste covers, and most of us can afford to have two different toothpastes, so we can do each in our own way. But that whole, just shut the toothpaste. Like, it doesn't really matter.
Toothpaste is a good example. Now, what's wrong with leaving the cap off? It gets dried out.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, technically, it gets dried out. Now, when I try to push I'm assuming if it's getting really dried out, that means you haven't been brushing, first of all. So that's the men. That means you haven't been brushing. So don't blame me why. So, so let's just do it. How much time do we have? We have a few more minutes.
We have enough. 2 more minutes. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. I just want to share one more thing, and I think this is very good. This is from Rabbi Pliskin's book, Gateway to Happiness, which is an old book, but it's very Kedai. Now let's look at this for a second. This is just what we call cognitive behavioral therapy. This is the basis of cognitive behavioral therapy. Cognitive behavioral therapy is a type of therapy we use where we use our mind to overcome our fears, our anxieties, to understand reality using our mind.
I can read
Gotcha.
a lot.
Thank you.
A CBT approach to looking at everyday occurrences. When you react to an event or an occurrence with a negative emotion, sadness, anger, or anxiety, divide the situation into 3 parts or stages. Stage 1, the situation itself without any evaluation. We call this data. Stage 2, your attitude about the situation. And stage 3, your emotional reaction. So the situation in itself, stage 1, does not cause your emotional reaction, stage 3. It's always your attitude about the situation, stage 2, that causes your emotional reaction. So change your attitude, stage 2, from negative to positive, and your emotional reaction, stage 3, will change from negative to positive. Remember, this positive attitude has to be realistic and acceptable to you personally.
Right. So this is really, in a certain way, earth-shattering, I want to say. It's a whole different dynamic because we're used to, like we say over here, the situation itself causes my emotional reaction. You know, I didn't get into yeshiva I wanted to. I feel horrible. It's terrible. It's really not the situation itself that caused my emotion. It's my attitude about that situation. That's the yeshiva I really wanted to go to. That's the one I thought would be the best for me. Now I'm not going to be able to get to the chavrusa that I knew was going there. Now, so it's the story I tell myself. The attitude about the situation is the story I tell myself about the situation. That creates the emotional reaction. Why don't you pick something about marriage? Maybe we'll just plug it into this for a second. I want to just demonstrate this because I think it's important.
Should we go with the late again, just to kind of
Sure, let's go with
to
being
it?
late. That's a great idea.
Okay.
The situation, the data. This person, my wife, is 45 minutes late. We said we're going to meet at 7:30 and she's not here yet. Fine. Now, what's my emotional reaction? We'll assume my emotional reaction is that I'm frustrated, I'm annoyed, I'm angry because this is already the 10th time this has happened. And she said for sure she's going to be on time this time. And I'm trying to call her and I can't get through. And oh, you know why I can't get through? But she's probably bedachka not answering the call. I'm making up a whole story right now.
Right.
And so these are my emotional responses to this data. But what's my attitude? My attitude is she doesn't care about me. She only cares about herself. She's self-involved. I don't mean anything to her. I have a whole story that I'm telling myself about that's created. Now, not once did I get nervous about her. Not once did I think, I hope everything's okay, because I'm in my story. I'm on my story that I'm the victim here. So change your attitude about this situation, and we change my emotional response. Now I'm going to change my attitude. Well, you know, my wife, she's amazing, she's incredible, but she's, you know, has a lot of trouble being on time. So there she goes again. She probably got sidetracked. She probably met a friend. She probably did this. You know what I'm going to do? So far, I've gone through 5 mesechtas already now. It's waiting for my wife. I'll take out my little Gemara. That's one idea. Or I'm going to say, I'm going to work on patience right now. I'm going to recognize all the incredible things about my wife. And I'm going to sort of overlook this. And when she comes, I'm really going to be warm and sweet. And I know she's going to really feel guilty, but I'm not going to play that card. I'm not going to make her feel worse. Now, if I could do that, forget about my wife. I just made a tremendous aliyah in my own personal development. With the ability. Now, that's not an easy thing to do, everyone. And I'm not saying that takes work. It takes a lot of struggle. It takes a lot of self-awareness. It takes a lot of intention. But that's exactly what we want in life. We want to have intention. We don't want to be a victim. We don't want to be like on the sidelines of our own lives. I think the ability to do something intense is really important. And I think that we have to recognize that core ability in ourselves. So this is I think it's on page 62 in Gateway to Happiness. I could send you a copy of this. You could, if anybody wants it, you know, I mean, you could share it. But I just think it's a great vehicle to sort of come up with a different answer. It's not negative, and it's reality based. It's not like, you know, I'm just telling myself a lie. I'm telling myself a bigger picture. That's what I'm telling myself, not just a narrow picture.
And if she's late, maybe she's really has a carpool and errands and you can just give her coffee when she walks in.
Wow, nice. Yes. Wouldn't we love to be treated that way if we came late? Yes. Yes.
Well, that shows that you recognize that there was maybe there's so much in her day, or too much in her day.
Yeah, I think so. Great. Let's see her as a person, not as a person who's like, you know, giving me problems. You know, I just wanted to share another thing here for a second. Rabbi Waxman, I was listening to a shir by Rabbi Waxman, Brian Waxman from Muncie, and he said like this. He said, "Why does Yitzhak Perlman practice?" Well, Yitzhak Perlman in reality, just
The violinist you're talking about.
Yeah, right. He's a world famous violinist. And he practices many hours a day. But why does he practice many hours a day? He's one of the best in the world already. And he asked another question. He said, what's the difference between Yitzhak Perlman playing the violin and someone from a regular college orchestra playing? Because they're all playing the same notes. Everybody's playing the same notes. So what makes him a world-renowned violinist and makes the guy from the college orchestra just a guy from the college orchestra? What's the difference? It's all the same notes. So he said, music is a spiritual endeavor. And there is no end to the depth that a person could connect their neshama to the music. So when he's playing the music, he's not playing notes. He's playing music. He's connected to the music, and his job is to bring the music into the world, and that's what people respond to. I had a friend of mine actually who was in Israel. He went to the Arthur Rubinstein piano competition they have in Israel every 3 years, and he spoke to one of the judges. He says, "So what do you listen to 15 pieces of Chopin?" He just like how do you make an assessment? This is what he said to him. He says, "I don't listen. I just sit there. But if I hear something, then I begin to listen. If I hear someone bringing something to the music more than just the notes, then I start listening." That's kind of what our job is. We don't have, sometimes many of us don't have music or art as a way of connecting to our spiritual side, but we do have the Rebbeinu Shalom, and we do have davening, and we do have learning, and we do have other things that could really help us connect to a deeper part of ourselves. That's the part we want to bring into the relationship. That's the part that we want. That's the part that we want to no end, to love a person, to know, let's think about that. I want to love my spouse. I want to love my wife to more and more and more and more and more. No end. That is a recipe for a happy life. That is a recipe for a happy life. And that is something that we can do, but it takes connection to self. It takes connection, it takes a desire. And it's hard to keep that going. I just want to say, it's hard for me to keep it going. Let's put it that way. It's hard to keep that going. Because numero uno right here. I keep going back to that. I keep going back to my needs come first, or that I'm the victim, or that this isn't fair, or something. So it's up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. That's kind of like when we grow, the Yerida before the Aliyah, then we have another Aliyah, then we have another Yerida, we have an Aliyah.
And we have the stages and phases and seasons of a marriage.
Yes.
You start as the two of you, and then you build a family and you build the responsibilities, and then eventually get to like our age, and there's a little bit more time, but the time is different, and there's different phases and stages, and so we have to always be working on the relationship throughout the whole time.
Right. Sometimes when you're a kid, and I don't mean a kid, but when you're in your 20s and 30s and 40s, You don't have time to work on the relationship. You're so busy. You are so busy running with carpool and kids and family and, but that's when we really need to take the time then also. Need to, you hear verbatim, everyone will tell you, take a date night with your wife. Once a week, go out. They're not discussing anything other than us. Take time, spend time, find things that are of common interest between you, and spend time doing them together. Like have fun together, connect with each other, learn. Be as we said, be curious, connected to another person.
And just to kind of to wrap it up, I think that a lot of what we were saying is about the communication and really being there for the other person, for your wife, who's talking to men, but in a way that they need to and want to be connected with, not only your way, and really finding a space for them in your life. Yeah.
That's I think that's if it's all about me again, it could be all about me. The person who is who has the inferiority complex and the superiority complex is just two sides of the same coin. You don't want either one. But I think you're right. If we're all involved with ourselves, how am I doing? But you're right. It's all about being connected to the other person. How are they doing? What's up with them? I'm going to just. Are we having questions and answers now, or something, or just questions, or what are we doing now? How does that work?
We could answer a couple questions. But
I'm just going to get a glass of water for 1 second. As my phone is okay. Excuse me 1 second.
Go ahead. So, to everyone else, while he gets we had several conversations in this Shidduch University series. It's on our website at adaiad.org, and you can look for the Shidduch University. Right now, we're having a temp website. We were hacked, but we were on our way back up. We also did last year. We did a whole series about different aspects of preparing for marriage, whether it was about trauma in your past or trauma or addictions, difficult family situations. So you can also listen to those on our website. Also, you go to the Adai Ad website, you'll see a link to listen to the last year's series also. So there's a lot that we spoke about in this series, and there's a lot more coming. Next week we'll be talking about also talking about red flags during dating. So there's a lot coming up. So we're back with you in your water. Go ahead.
Okay. Yes. I apologize. You said what? Do you want me to look at a question, or was there a question?
So you were wrapping up.
Am I wrapping up?
Did you have a final thought before we go to the question?
Final thought. Let me see. Nothing. Do I have final? I think the final thought is that 1 + 1 = 1+. That
I love that.
You're creating a new entity. You're really creating a new entity, and it's not what's better for her or for me. It's what's better for us. It's what's better for us. It's like that's so. It's not we're compromising. We're creating a new entity. Yeah.
Okay. So question. Some both men and women, but now we're talking about men, feel like they don't want to have to ask their wife to bring over their friends, or they don't want to have to ask their wife, they don't want to say, I have to ask my wife. They just want to be able to bring over their friends for Shabbos, or be able to stay out later than they used to. So
got it. Your wife is not your mother. You don't have to ask her permission, but she is your other half. In that respect, in other words, that's what's so hard about marriage, is that at the beginning, at least, is that, hold on, I'm a solo guy. I make my own choices. I make my own decisions. I do what I want. I go where I want. I come, I go. I do everything independently. Now, all of a sudden, there's another person here. You know what I mean? How do I take that other person into account? And so I think, I'll give you a little secret. And that goes like this. The more you take your wife into account, the less she needs to be taken into account. The more she feels loved and taken care of and valued and cherished, then she doesn't have to hold on to you to get that feeling, So, if you always feel my wife, she wants me to do this, she wants me to do that, she wants me to hang out with her, she wants me to be with her. So that might be a little bit of simon, might be a sign that my wife's not feeling filled up. My wife is not feeling that she is so loved and so valued. So that's an opportunity for the man to realize, no, if my wife feels that way, then she's much more available something. Now, sometimes women don't, they, especially Shana Rishona, you don't want to be running out. So I think, but there is a place where she wants to get the other friends. There's always this issue, like I dropped all my friends. I got married, I dropped all my friends. I don't think the goal is to drop all your friends, but your other married friends know that we can't always get together at the same frequency that we used to. And I think that's just the reality. You're building something. If you were building a business, your business, you needed to put time into the business, but I want to go and party. Well, so then you have to make a choice.
Trade-offs.
Yeah.
Well, what's more important?
Yeah, right. But I think that this is the more you make your wife feel valued, the less necessarily that she's going to be looking for that.
So similar question, like maybe in your parents' home, your father or whatever just brought a bunch of bachrim over for a Shabbos meal, and your wife isn't up to that, or doesn't want that, but you think that that's how it should be.
Oh, good, excellent, a great way of saying it. But you think that's the way it should be, exactly. So I think that's really something really important to talk about, before you get married, but also after you get married. If you remember All for the Boss, no, maybe people don't read that book anymore, but he told his wife right back before that, I need to have 1 million people every Shabbos. That's life that I want. So I think that that's important. And even when you tell your wife, I need to have 1 million people, and she says yes, but things do change sometimes also. Right. So I think we have to be open to the realities of change. A lot of things change in life, and we need to be sort of flexible for that. So I think yeah, don't call your question exactly what you asked me.
Yeah. But the idea of being flexible, I think, is a very important piece. Yeah. Just because we said something in the first year and during dating, and it could have been 100% true, and right. We change, circumstances change, whether it's even in the first few months, but definitely over 30 years, things could have changed. And just because someone said something back when, and they really, really meant it, but didn't fully, the life hadn't happened. So
yeah. Right. A friend of mine was telling me in Israel, he lives in Israel, and he was telling me he knows this couple, the couple, very just regular Israeli. He's a very accomplished guy. He's was in a very elite unit in the army, and and all of a sudden he started becoming very frum, and she didn't. You know what I mean? So if you walk down the street and you see them together, like you're wondering like, who are these people? Like, but he says he loves his wife. I love my wife, and they're trying to work it out. He said, she's going to be, one day she'll become, so people are changing all the time. We want to stay together. We want our changes to be synchronized with each other. We don't want someone to be way ahead of the other person. And that really comes a lot from communication.
And that's probably why that can work, because they so respect each other.
Yes, I think there was a lot of respect there, exactly. There's respect there, and that's the main thing. The Chazal tell us, the man has to respect his wife more than himself. And he has to love her like himself, but he has to respect her more than himself. And the same thing to say to a woman, that a woman has to respect her husband exceedingly. We men, we need a lot of respect, but women need a lot of respect in a different way, and that's kind of what we were talking about. That's. I'll tell you another thing Rabbi Noach said, and I think it's an important statement. He said, sometimes you have to treat a wife like a daughter. You can't get involved with women are very emotional sometimes, and they're very feeling people, and that's exactly how we want them to be, and that's exactly how they are. But sometimes if you can't be there with them, then you have to be there with them. Meaning like, okay, I hear that. Wow, that's a big problem. And I hear that. Like, be available, and
mean it, not just take that as a technique.
Yes, no, exactly. Really mean it.
Like the whole thing of like, how do I show that I'm paying attention? It's like, you don't have to show that you're paying attention. You pay attention, then you don't have to have any techniques about how to pay attention.
It's very hard to trick a woman. I just want people to know that. It's very hard to trick a woman, okay? I've tried and it does, no,
Yeah.
very hard to trick a woman.
Especially over the years when
Yeah,
they-
yeah, exactly. And you don't want to, you don't need to.
you shouldn't need to, because if you have enough communication throughout, and you don't have to always agree. I think that's something very important. Even during dating, you don't have to be 100% aligned with everything, but you can marry someone who's not 100% aligned as long as you
Yes,
respect those
100%.
differences.
Yes, I
Because
agree.
knowing that there will be differences even afterwards. You don't
Even
really
i-
even want somebody who's 100% like you. That's a very boring life.
Yeah, and even people who grow up next door to each other are very different. They're in the same community. They're just people are people. People are unique.
But we are different. We're different from ourselves even sometimes. Sometimes I do this and sometimes I do that. So why shouldn't someone else be able to change their minds or be sometimes like this and sometimes like that?
Well said.
All right. So that we can go on for a long time. I really thank you so much. This was very insightful, very helpful. We covered a lot of important areas. If anyone
Great.
wants to reach you, how can they reach you?
I could my cell phone is 917-595-6953, and my email is Eliezer Schwadron LCSW, ELIEZER SCHWADRON LCSW, one word, @gmail.
Okay. And if anyone wants to reach Adai Ad, you can reach us at Adai Ad, it's all A's, ADAIAD.org. And the best way is to WhatsApp us. And you can also get our daily tips through the WhatsApp. And our WhatsApp number is 475-212-2049. So thank you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate being
And
here.
thank you,
for the
Rachama,
invite. Yes, thank you,
Chapman
Rachama.
from Mask for making this all happen. And thank you all and good night. Thank you.
Good night.